Hello, I'm Esther Roche and welcome to the Mom CEO podcast. Join me as we explore the dynamic intersection of motherhood and entrepreneurship. From the challenges to the triumphs, we're here to unravel it all. Get ready for insightful conversations, practical wisdom, and a whole lot of inspiration. Let's embark on this empowering journey together. Hello and welcome to the Mom CEO podcast. Today I'm joined by Maylene, who's a brand strategist and designer at Studio Noor Anisa. Maylene, hello and welcome to the show.
Hi Esther, thank you so much for having me on the show.
No, you're very welcome. I'm really delighted to have you and have a great chat around obviously people being unapologetically themselves. So would you like to just explain to the audience about yourself and your journey so far?
Sure, so I'm Maylene, or you can call me May for short, and I am the founder and creative director behind Studio Noor Anisa, which is basically like a design or branding studio helping driven Muslim small businesses become the go-to with a captivating brand, and I help them stand out and stand up unapologetically. And well, my journey has kind of like been quite varied. I started off being a branding designer in agencies and kind of worked my way up, and then obviously I became a mom. So then I kind of went away and started having my own small business, which is an Islamic lifestyle shop for kids, and I've sold that a few years ago and kind of pivoted into doing branding again, this time helping other small businesses, because I realized that a lot of my peers were asking questions that I could answer, having been in branding and working my way up. So yeah, that's kind of like the gist of what I do.
Oh, that's brilliant. So, obviously you've had quite an interesting journey to get you to where you are. It's not something that's just happened overnight. Would you say, because obviously you're a mum of two, and
Yes.
when you decided to go out and start into the business world, did you have both children or were you just starting out as a mum?
Yeah, I was just starting out. So I had my my first one. She's 11 years old now.
Oh, wow.
And then I, because I'm a creative person, I needed a creative outlet. And it felt, I don't know if most moms feel this way, but usually when you become a mom, there's a part of you that's craving to be more in touch with who you are as a person outside of that mom world. So there was that part of me. But also I think what happened was I was, it was born out of my own need, because we were decorating her nursery and there were things that people were selling. I was like, actually, I can do this. Or like, actually, I'm looking for something that I couldn't find. And so I started creating it, and it just kind of happened very organically.
No, that sounds really interesting because, what I'm picking there is obviously you changed your lifestyle based on your family circumstances and stuff. And I think there's quite a few people that worry about that jump of thinking, okay, if I start a family, am I actually going to be okay? Have you got any advice for those people that are in between those stages?
Yeah, when they start a family, I think when you start a family, you're kind of going through all these different phases of life, isn't it?
Yeah.
And for me as a person, I can be quite spontaneous, and I'll just adapt accordingly. So for me, how I see it is, you don't have to see like the top of the staircase to take the first step, right? And it's just opportunities out there. It's what you make of it. It could be positive or negative based on your own outlook or what you choose to believe. So for me, it was more like, okay, so this is my next phase of life. Let's see where that takes me, and let's make the most of it.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting because I think we do get people having that fear and taking that leap, jump and stuff. And would you say for yourself you've had quite a bit of support around you to enable you to grow within obviously your business and managing, the family and the business, or you're kind of doing it alone?
I'd say no. I was like, it was doing it alone. It was hard. It was hard. And, I think that's why I would tell people you have to have such a strong why you're doing it, because so many times in those 7 years that I had that first business, I was ready to throw in the towel because I wasn't getting that support from family, and I think many people that I've spoken to feel this way, like they get family or just people close to them thinking that it's just an expensive hobby.
Yeah.
So, and I knew that I knew that there was something that I was trying to do here. It was for my children, but it was for future generations. And I felt this really big kind of urge to like, I need to carry on with this. And I think where I got the support from was actually from people I didn't expect to get support from. It's actually from like the online community that I was in, and other fellow businesses who were in similar positions. Some were probably further along, and it was actually when I surrounded myself with this right people who were supportive. I think that's what gave me the motivation to keep going, because these people actually understood what I was trying to do. And with family, obviously I think some of it came from my own kind of like stories that I tell myself in my head, but I felt like there was a lot of judgment, and that really, I think that really got to me. So it came to a point where I was like, actually, you know what? Let's just put boundaries in place, so I'm not going to be affected by that, and just surround myself with the right people. So yeah, I would say that has been quite key, to be around the right people during those very initial years of starting the business.
Yeah, no, you've hit on something really, really important there, because I think a lot of people, I hear that a lot of times about when you start something and the support from the family, it's usually quite, I don't think if people are on the, I could put it in a way that if people are not on the same journey and they don't see the same vision and they don't understand your why, they're not going to understand what you're trying to do. But somebody else who's trying to do their own business will understand. So, in other words, what advice would you give to those that are also looking and not having that support that they feel they may be having from those closer, with regards to going out
Yeah,
and stuff?
I would say seek out that community of like-minded women. For me, also having mentors early on really helped, because they are so many steps ahead of me. So that meant that, there was that support and advice and empathy when I needed to kind of give me the push that I needed as well to keep moving forwards with my business, and not to kind of, spend as much time going down the wrong route trying to figure things out for myself. So it really is the people, I think, like where you put yourself in, basically.
Yeah, no, that's so important, because personally in my own business, I found the whole thing with mentoring, having mentors, those people that have been there, done that, holding your hand,
Yeah,
quite helpful, and having that right community of the people that are like-minded. And I would say as well, it's if a particular group doesn't work for you, you find another one and try and engage with
precisely,
other people and keep moving on.
precisely. And there's so many groups nowadays, which is a good thing. I think there's so many small businesses now as well. And I think it's also about staying true to your values, knowing who you are, like what you stand for, and finding those groups who align with those values, because not everyone's going to be the same. And like you say, right, if it's not right, you move on.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, obviously, one of the things we want to talk about is people being unapologetically themselves and not to be scared to take that step and have a niche and stuff like that. Would you like to talk more about that and just give, some points and add some value to those people that are listening and want to have that kind of advice and support?
Yeah. So, I mean, for me, I speak very kind of very much from like a branding perspective, right? So, when you're having your own business and showing up as a brand, I know there are people who might think like, oh, so and so is successful, I need to be this so and so or this way in order to have that same success. And you end up copying, or like kind of, I mean, I don't know if copying is the right word, but you kind of emulate certain aspects, right? But yeah, I think there are brands who feel like, I've seen brands who like almost look identical to a certain brand or speak in a certain way. And then, it feels number one, I think it doesn't differentiate you. Like it doesn't make your customers or clients think like, why should I choose you over the other person? Number two, it's if it's not in your kind of natural, personality to be a certain way or to show up a certain way, then there's going to always be that friction, and it doesn't come across as genuine. It doesn't come across as, it won't be as compelling for somebody looking at you from the outside or looking at your brand from the outside. I think a lot of people, a lot of business owners that I hear, when you feel like you have to be a certain way, then there is that friction, isn't it? It's stopping you from really truly showing up. Like, for example, everyone's on social media, and you might think, oh, I need to be like putting on my makeup, or I need to be like this certain version of myself, and then that holds you back from actually showing up and being who you are. And what I know, or what I've noticed and I believe, is that if you are just being yourself with all your quirks, then you're attracting the like-minded, or people like you. And it just, I see that there's a lot of energy and magic in when like-minded people come together, and suddenly there's so much more you can do together, and you feel motivated to keep going and to show up and do greater things that helps your community, that helps the audience that you're trying to serve. So for me, it's so important to be, really embracing that, because people who love you for who you are, those are the people you want around you. You don't want people who are accepting you for a version of yourself that's not actually who you are. Yeah, hope that kind of makes sense.
No, it does, absolutely. And I think it's so funny, because if you're in the business world, you kind of go through all these phases, don't you, where you go somewhere and you think, oh, I have to try and be this way or do this way. And unfortunately, not everybody can put on this persona that they're not. And the majority will just go back to their authentic selves. And I think it's so important, because, I've had a similar journey where you kind of think, oh, I have to be a certain way to fit in, but I've been accepted the way I am, and I just show up as me. I can't be anybody else. And it's so much easier. It makes life so much easier. But in your own experience working with, people obviously going through the branding and the design and everything, what do you think holds people back? When you've had conversations, what do you think holds people back or makes people feel they can't be themselves?
I think it's just like, I don't know if it's just human nature. We all want to fit in to a certain, niche or society. So there's always that feeling like you need to be a certain way. I think, a lot of time it is maybe also to do with our upbringing. I mean, I don't know if maybe different cultures as well, like you start to have that, and like it's embedded in you as you were growing up, like by your families, right? Like, in Asian culture, like, oh, you can't do this, you can't do that, or you have to be so and so, otherwise you won't be accepted. I think a lot of it has to do with our upbringing, our environment. And I think, yeah, and it can be hard trying to break out of that and say, actually, you know what? No, like I'm going to embrace who I am. If you don't like me, that's fine. I'm not for you. And I think that's probably like one of the main things that might have helped people back, is that fear of judgment. Yeah, that fear of judgment, I think, from others. Like, oh, what's my family going to think about this? Or what are my, previous colleagues going to think about me doing this business? But hold on, they're not your audience. They're not your customers or clients. It doesn't matter what they think. And yeah, I think it takes courage, right? To really step out there and be who you are. But I think once you've passed that mark, it feels so good, because you know that you're different in your own unique way. And, you have the people who come to you are genuinely here because they believe in what you have, in what you have to offer, in what you believe in and stand for, etc. And I think that's a much better place to be in than the other way.
No, absolutely. And it's important, like you said, because, I think the environments, we tend to forget that we all come from different different backgrounds, we've had different walks of life, and it's realizing that, you know, we're not the same person. And going back to what you said earlier on is understanding your why. And is that something that you work with, you know, with clients when you're getting people on and helping them with their branding and you know, all the strategies they need to put in place, like understanding their whys and mm,
Yeah, I would always start with a why, because I think, you know, what it is as well is, you know, with small businesses, if they don't have clarity about that why, and then at some point when they feel like giving up, then there's no business, right?
yeah,
If they do stop it. So I think the why is important for that reason, because you want to create a brand that's also got longevity. But at the same time, knowing that why means that it will infiltrate or influence what the whole brand looks like, you know, what they say, you know, how they show up. And that is going to be attractive to the people they want to serve, who very likely have a very similar why to them. Is helping to gather people who have this like same vision of same goals. So that's why, like, for me, that is like the number one thing to start with.
yeah.
And then kind of working down, like, you know, the values and the personality. How is it different to other, you know, other brands that are in the same niche? And then that kind of that's what I call like the essence of like what you are as a brand. And then that would have an influence on what the brand looks and feels like, you know, like what your brand voice is. How do you talk to people? What do you say? How does it look, and how does it feel? People buy, you know, by emotion. Like 97% of people, you know, buy based on their emotions. And so how does your brand make them feel? And all this is, again, from the top down, from that why question all the way to like the essence. And then that's how, yeah. So it's very important to have that foundation in place before you even think about that, how you show up, basically.
Yeah, no, that's it's interesting, all the processes and the stages that you have to follow, and you know, all the various things that you have to consider actually when you're working with it. You know, so with yourself, obviously, because you're big on showing up as who you are and working, you know, with different types of clients. Do you specifically focus on the Muslim community, or do you work with just a whole range of clients when you do your work?
Yeah, so I have kind of niched into the Muslim community because obviously that's who I am. Like, it's something I identify with, and I know that not everyone can do that because of all the nuances that might come with being Muslim. So it's being able to offer something to my clients that they might not be able to get, you know, easily elsewhere. But also, you know, I wouldn't say that I don't work with sorry, I do work with non-Muslims as well, but it's always easier, right? Like when you actually focus and say, no, I work with Muslims, because then you're attracting those people. And what I would say is, like, I have worked with like other brands who might share like same values or same ethics, and that's like no issue for me. Yeah.
No, that's really good, to be honest, because you've obviously niched down to who you are,
Mm.
and you know who you are, and that makes a big difference to how you present yourself and how you do your work. And you know, again, we're going back to the same thing we mentioned earlier, where you're talking about the values aligning, because I think sometimes with small businesses, you feel you've got to just take any work that you get, even if the values don't align, you know, with your company and what you're trying to achieve and where you're going. What advice would you give to those people that kind of like just want to have it all without going through and selecting, basically, because it can be quite challenging, I think.
Or what do you mean by like want to have it all without selecting?
Just working with everybody, because we can't work with everybody, you know, so what focus would people?
Got it. Um, okay. Yeah. So in terms of that, like, I mean, I know that sometimes it feels like, oh gosh, and I think especially when it comes to like, oh, I need to get money in the bank, right? And you think I'm just gonna take on any client or take on any customer. But then, you know, I think I've done that before. I'm sure I've done that before. And when you work with people that you don't align with, it just ends up opening a whole new can of worms.
Yeah.
And like, but you know what? It is good to have that experience because it tells you, actually, you know what? I don't want to work with this kind of people. And you just keep refining that. So, it's not all bad. Like you learn from it, right? So I would say, like, yeah, it would be so much easier and so much more empowering and like uplifting to work with people that you really vibe with and that you align with in terms of values, because like, yeah, it's like choosing friends, right? It's like, if you have a client who doesn't quite align with your vibes, it's like having that friend that you really don't want to hang around with, and it just doesn't feel good. And so you're not doing your best work for them as well. And so in that sense, you're doing a disservice to them. And I don't want to do disservice to anybody. So for me, like, it is so important that I choose to work with the right people. If it has to wait, like, what they say about how when one door closes, many other doors open. I think if you're choosing to work with somebody who doesn't align with your values, you might be closing yourself to the person who's just waiting to work with you, who aligns with your values. And then, especially for service-based businesses, can you imagine, like, the people that you work with that are not so aligned, and you're like, you might just get pigeonholed into working with that kind of businesses. And that's what you don't want either. So you want to be choosing the right kind of people who you want to work with, who value what you have to offer, who would love to work with you and are going to rave about you because you've given them such a great service or product, because they believe in you, they believe in what you have to offer. So it is so important to actually, push yourself towards working with the people, like being able, I think as business women, we have the choice, right? So you get to choose who you want to work with. So, you're not stuck in a 9 to 5 where you have to work with anything that comes your way. So why not take this opportunity to choose who you work with, and actually work with people that you align with the best? And yeah, I think that just makes you feel so much better about your business, and it's going to take you to new levels moving forwards.
No, that's you've said that wonderfully there, because it's a lot of points that I think the audience will take on board, because like you said, it's easy to just jump on anything, and those kind of relationships usually don't end up too good. And we
No,
all do it. Like it's something that I think initially when you're starting, you kind of feel you have to impress everybody, you have to work with everybody, but you get to realize as you grow, in business, that it's not possible. You can't do that. One of the other things I wanted to touch on was, if you can just explain a little bit about the importance of inspiring, obviously the younger generation, those that are studying or wanting to go into business or even start a family, because it's all about trying to do the juggle, and just a bit of advice for them.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, and I think you probably hear this a lot, don't be afraid to dream big, and don't be afraid to be different. I think it's sometimes, yeah, it's about getting started and knowing where you want to get to, and not worrying about the how, and then just let yourself be kind of taken on that journey. And I think that's how I started. If you ask me like 20 years ago, if I would imagine where I am today, I wouldn't have. But I knew I wanted to travel the world. I knew I wanted to, have that freedom to work anywhere I wanted, whenever I wanted. And I wanted to get out of Singapore, which was where I'm from. So I'm like, there's a lot of things along the way that I wanted, that I've done. I didn't know how I was going to get there, but because I had that dream, I had that vision, it's about just going for that vision. And yeah, and I think that's what makes life like enriching and exciting, right? But if you're kind of like, if you're thinking like, oh, starting a family, starting a business, it's scary, should I do it? And you don't do it, it might come to a point where you regret not even doing it. So I would say, take a chance, give yourself a chance, believe in what you can offer, and just do it. And you can always turn back, like not turn back, you can always pivot later, but until you do it, you don't know if what's going to happen.
Yeah,
So
no,
that's what I would.
yeah, that's absolutely brilliant. And it's that having the confidence to do it. But unfortunately, sometimes it's something that's a work in progress for some people where you're building up that confidence and starting from somewhere and just growing and growing. So it's interesting and very very useful tips for somebody who's trying, and the whole thing about having a vision and stuff, because there's the amount of people that have a fear or think, oh, because just because something hasn't happened it means I'll never ever achieve anything. And I think you kind of are scared to take that leap. Have you got any pointers for people that are really worried about, or not even having the vision? What kind of, I don't know, what advice you'd say to somebody who's in that kind of mindset, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, you know what? For me, like I have my visions, right? And I know I'm like I've taken leaps of faith before, but sometimes, but I think, I do still have my own blocks. I still have my own limiting beliefs
Mm.
of how far I can go. And actually, what's helped me was, sometimes even just signing up to things like Mind Valley or like following certain coaches where I get to, just try something new and experience like a different perspective, and being able to sit and actually just being open, expanding my mind to, okay, what is possible? Like if maybe a question, that people listening to this podcast can ask themselves is, if time and money was of no object, what would you be doing? What do you want to do? What's going to fill your heart and soul? And just forget everything, just forget about life for the moment and think, what is it that you really, really want? Like if you could have anything that you wanted. And I think maybe working from there, because I think sometimes when you have that visual of like, actually, I love to be doing this, then, you can slowly take those steps towards it. And excuse me, think about, well, what kind of person do I need to become to get there? And I think this is all about personal growth, isn't it? Like, I think for me, I'm just changing all the time. Like every time I want something, well, I'm not getting it yet. Well, who do I need to be to get there? Maybe I need to work on myself a little bit more. Maybe I need to think about things a little bit differently. And, you don't have to see it as a leap of faith. You can take it as a baby step. Like, okay, what's the first small step? What's the next small step? And then by the time you know it, you're already there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I love that you're getting the audience to ask themselves those kind of questions. And we do all go through those blocks and things, and it's about how we work around them and stuff. But I think one of the things I've picked up, from all our conversation is that you've got that drive. You've never been somebody who is going to sit still and not want to,
No, I'm
not
not.
want to. And it's
I can't sit still.
and it's so bizarre, the saying that says, give a busy person work and they'll get it done. And it's kind of how I feel at times, because like people ask me and they think, how do you manage all this, how are you doing all this and stuff? But I think it's the drive, because you don't want to just sit still. It's having that drive, having an ambition, having those dreams and the visions that you kind of think, this is what I want. And for me personally, it's for me, but it's also for my family, for my children. And do you feel with your family, it inspires them? I know they're only young, but is there things that come up, when you talk to the children about mommy doing business or working and all those kind of things?
Yeah, definitely. I think it definitely rubs off on them. And I love that, it rubs off on the family. And that's why I think it's so important for them to see us, as business owners and, taking things into our own hands and doing it. So like there have been a couple of occasions where I remember once my daughter, she was writing somewhere like, oh, I want to be a brand strategist like my mummy, or like, when she's at school and like organizing her own fundraising, and like she's actually mobilized all her friends, like, okay, you do this and you do this and then we're going to do this. Like, she was, because she loves drawing, she's basically trying to draw like pictures for what do you call it, for fundraising. But she's like, oh yeah, and then because they're the ones who are copying my pictures, that's would, like, they get paid a little bit less. I get paid a bit more because I'm like overhead, like see. Which I thought was quite interesting that she thought that way. But Yeah, it was like I think it's nice to see like little things that they pick up, from our journey, and even for myself, as like it's been such a huge learning curve, and like I know I've grown as a person as I've gone into business, and these are things I want to see my kids picking up as well because they don't get taught at school,
No.
and I feel it's so important, especially the kind of life they're having. And like education is just not the same as it used to be, like how it was for us. I think, you learn from the world, you learn from doing. There's so many places you can learn from and to get to where you want to get to.
Yeah, and it's so important because you've hit something with the whole inspiration for the children. And unfortunately, this is where, even the background, the upbringing comes into play, because you're gonna know what is around you with, from the people that surround you and the people you're connected with whilst you're growing up and stuff. So it's nice that they have that positive role model and they can see what you're doing and they're trying to imitate that.
Yeah.
Really got business minds and business heads.
Yeah,
Which is
definitely.
incredible. But it's I think it gives them a little bit of confidence. It's not easy, but it does help and give them that little bit of confidence to think, I can actually try, I can do this, and they can call on you to get a bit of support and everything as they go along. So no, that's really, really great. And with regards to your own the brand strategy, what have you got coming up? Is there anything exciting that's coming up that the audience needs to know about, and how they can reach you?
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, like, what, I recently just started a course to help small businesses, level up in their brands, but basically so that they can get noticed by their dream audience and be remembered as the go-to. For a very long time, I was just offering one-to-one services, but I know sometimes it can be hard for someone starting out to be able to invest in that. And so like it was very exciting for me to launch this course, and we're actually starting next Monday.
Oh, fantastic.
And yeah, and it's something where I'm like, you know what, I've sat on this idea for 4 years, and my husband has got to a point of saying it's not going to happen. And I think once he said that, I was like, no, it's going to happen. So I got it out, and I got it out messy. It was like, it's not perfect. I have not recorded anything, but I'm going to do this with the people who believe in me, and we're going to co-collaborate, and it will be refined as we go along. And I'm so pleased that I've got it set up now. It's going. So yeah, so that's the exciting thing that's happening right now for me. So we'll see how it goes next Monday. But also, like, I started a WhatsApp group, which is growing, with like very well, with small Muslim businesses, or anyone who really is like, like wanting to be around like-minded women. And I sometimes find it quite hard or energy draining to go on Instagram. But whereas with WhatsApp, I feel like I can have instant conversations with people, and they can have conversations with one another. So I'm pleased to say like it's thriving, and it's just so lovely to see people helping out one another. Like to have that community
Yeah.
feel. Like it's like what we said earlier, right? It's about surrounding yourself with the right people. And so like for me, that's worked out for me. And so that's the other kind of thing that's growing, which I'm really excited about. But yeah, I would say this too. And then in addition to that, I'm still working with clients who have like this big visions, and it's always amazing to like learn about what they want to do and how they're going to make an impact on the world. But yeah, so that's me in terms of like the work. And with regard to where to find me, well, I do still hang out on Instagram sometimes. So it's at studio.noor Anisa, which is NOORANISA. Or there's my website, which is www.nooranisa.com. Yeah, that's like I think the main places I'll be, and my WhatsApp.
No, I'm gonna, what I'll do is, when the show goes out, we will have links for people to be able to contact you and reach you. Those people that feel their values align with you and they would like to work with you, they can just connect with you on there. But it's been an absolute pleasure having you today.
Likewise, Esther. Likewise. Thank you so much for having me. That was a fun conversation.
No, it was really insightful. Thank you very much.
Thank you.